The 87th Academy Award nominees were announced on January 15, 2015. The Best Actress nominees included Marion Cotillard in 2 Days, One Night, Felicity Jones in The Theory of Everything, Julianne Moore in Still Alice, Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl, and Reese Witherspoon in Wild. The characters and their respective actresses' portrayal are far more progressive in representations of agency, strength, and intelligence than nominees of years past. Here, we will critique these roles and representations through a feminist lens, contrasting them within the historically regressive female character and actresses' portrayals. But be aware that our analysis of these films inherently unravel their plot.
Marion Cotillard, who plays a factory worker, Sandra, has 2 days to convince her coworkers to decline their bonuses. Otherwise, she risks losing her job under her own demand. Oscar-nominated roles traditionally depict women progressing into job equality. 2 Days, One Night is no exception. Under the strain of mental illness, Cotillard uses her sensitivity and human emotions to put herself in a sustainable job. This directly juxtaposes Cotillard's role of that of Julia Roberts and Erin Brockovich. As feminist film theorist John Simon advocates in feminist film theory, today's American actresses fall mainly into 2 categories: those who in some way deflect travesty or blatantly overstate their womanliness and sensuality, and those who suppress it, or have something to suppress. In 2 Days, One Night, being French, it contrasts and commentates the objectification of females within French and American cinematic representations. Furthermore, it is highly progressive in that not only does a woman fulfill the role so spectacularly, it simultaneously deters from stereotypical female representations of dependence. Culminated in the final scene, the factory workers hold a second ballot, resulting in an 8-16 vote in favor of Sandra losing her job. After the ballots are revealed, her manager calls her into his office and says that she can take the job of one of her former coworkers. Boldly, she turns this offer down. Through this process, she learns her strengths and can grasp her ability to start over, opposing the traditionalized depictions of women's inability to embrace change and dispose of unfulfilling relationships.
Portraying Jane Hawking in The Theory of Everything, Felicity Jones plays a young woman whose love for the astrophysicist Stephen Hawking helps him defy the odds as he is diagnosed with a motor neuron disease. Originally coined the Stephen Hawking movie, the film is actually based upon Jane Hawking's book, Traveling to Infinity, My Life with Stephen. Jones's role as Jane is controversially feminist because, while she breaks many stereotypical expectations of women in her academic pursuits, she is still primarily portrayed as a traditionalized, nurturing, selfless wife. Directed by James Marsh, the film is heavily reliant upon Hawking's own genius. However, the film fails to adequately accentuate Jane's own personal strength. Instead of focalizing Jane into the genius role, she is merely kept nearby as the genius's emotional and physical caretaker. Here, we see her proclaim her absolute devotion after being made fully aware of the incredible obstacles that will soon follow in the wake of Stephen's diagnosis, thus revealing the most heart-wrenching scenes, in which Jane attempts to reteach her husband the ability to communicate. As the film begins to follow Stephen Hawking's career and contributions, his girlfriend, then wife, Jane, is seen next to him in nearly every scene, consistently supporting Stephen's battle with depression, resulting from his body's deterioration as his ALS progresses. Despite Stephen's fatal diagnosis, Jane nurses him for decades, raises their family, pursues her PhD, and simultaneously encourages Stephen's incredible work. Although Jane is undoubtedly a strong, admirable character, her presentation does not drastically break from the traditional depictions of women. Jane's pursuit of education is overshadowed by her husband's academic achievements, while little is done to substantiate her accomplishments to those of her husband. Beyond her studies, as viewers, we recognize her strengths as she balances work and family. But this becomes her sole responsibility and role within the film. Furthermore, the theory of everything demonstrates a particularly keen female gaze, which only bolsters her objectification. In Hawking's refusal of additional assistance, Jane's heroism defies all odds. However, the cinematic result of the theory of everything is neither a progressive role nor presentation of femininity. Thus, as viewers, we are left knowing that she does not receive the credit that she deserves. Had the film showcased a genius disabled woman being supported by her husband, traditionalized gender roles would have been progressively dismantled. And the fact that Felicity Jones was nominated as a leading Best Actress nominee is indicative in of itself. In Jane being showcased as a very nurturing, motherly light, these roles are often designated as supporting and not leading roles. Although characteristically similar, actresses such as Taraji P. Henson in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button or Maggie Gyllenhaal in Crazy Heart only received acclaim as supporting.
The next nominee and 2015 winner is Julianne Moore for her performance in Still Alice, playing Alice Howland, a linguistics college professor who learns she is suffering from early onset Alzheimer's disease. The role is unique in that it is a story about an older woman deterring from the traditional, youthful, sexualized women of today's cinema. However, this is highly purposeful, demonstrating how all life is equally valuable, young or old. At the Golden Globes, Moore's emotion became apparent, applauding Still Alice's filmmakers for their continuous passion and devotion to the film, which initially failed to warrant considerable attention, simply due to its subject matter. Directed and written by Richard Glatzer and Wash Westmoreland, Still Alice is an adaptation of Lisa Genova's original novel, a tender and heartbreaking tale. At times it feels like a Lifetime movie, but Moore steals the screen and captivates the audience with her performed, brutal suffering at the hands of Alzheimer's disease. The most inspiring scene of the film occurs as Alice finally develops the courage to give a speech about her experience and adversity. As viewers, we watch her cope and battle the disease, which she highlights in her climactic speech. Moore could fall into a traditional victim role, especially as a woman. However, she does not. She fights for every word, every memory, and is thus a true hero. Even Anne Hathaway in Love and Other Drugs, or Julie Christie in Away From Her, discussing Parkinson's and Alzheimer's respectively, the characters failed to grasp a sense of independence without the emotional security of a man's presence like that of Still Alice. In Gone Girl, Amy Dunn, played by Rosamund Pike, disappears or is murdered under her own accord, while simultaneously and strategically incriminating her husband under the pretenses of infidelity, abuse, and sexual exploitation. He is then left powerless and vulnerable in the face of public ridicule and suspicion. As the film progresses, both Nick and the audience unveil the truth behind Amy's disappearance, privileging us the unique perspective of truth, which the rest of the characters in the film are never granted. Rhetorically powerful, in the closing scene, Nick is coerced back into his marriage at Amy's imposition of a coming child. Thus, their opinion of the conniving, psychotic, evil Amy is actually one of admiration due to her empowerment and resilience. Gone Girl has been debated as to whether it is feminist or misogynistic. We have found that the film dismantles many social constructs facing women today. Gone Girl contains portrayals of women as feeble, nurturing, reliant wives, but serving as a critique in the midst of the powerful main character Amy, advancing a norm of independence and ability. Furthermore, Gone Girl breaks numerous fantasy themes, rooted in patriarchal and misogynistic ideals, exemplified in the Cool Girl monologue, which generalizes women and portrays them as basic, mindless beings. But this is made relative in Amy's shattering of these ideals. In comparing Pike's performance to that of similar, psychotic previous roles, many examples come to mind, including Natalie Portman in Black Swan and Charlize Theron in Monster. In both Black Swan and Monster, these leading female characters are consumed by their deranged mental state, resulting in their demise. However, Gone Girl is different, in that Amy Dunn is able to embrace her personality and manipulate those around her, and in the end, be successful. Furthermore, the characters of Black Swan and Monster fail to dismantle female representation in the same drastic manner as Amy's cool girl monologue in Gone Girl.
Cool girl. Men always use that, don't they, as their defining compliment. She's a cool girl. Cool girl is hot. Cool girl is gay. Cool girl is fun. Cool girl never gets angry at her man. She only smiles in a chagrin-loving manner and then presents her mouth for fucking. She likes what he likes, so evidently, he's a vinyl hipster who loves fetish manga. If he likes girls gone wild, she's a mall babe who talks football and endures buffalo wings at Hooters. When I met Nick Dunn, I knew he wanted a cool girl. And for him, I'll admit, I was willing to try. I wax-stripped my pussy raw. I drank canned beer watching Adam Sandler movies. I ate cold pizza and remained a size 2. I blew him, semi-regularly. I lived in the moment. I was fucking game. I can't say I didn't enjoy some of it.
Wild, starring Reese Witherspoon as Cheryl Strayed, depicts a woman who decides to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, alone, seeking enlightenment in the midst of divorce, her mother's death, and years of her own destructive behavior. Through the 1,000-mile-long hike, she proves to both herself and the viewers that personal fulfillment is truly obtainable, regardless of the adversity one may face. Based on Cheryl Strayed's 2012 memoir, Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail, this film is regarded as feminist because the intentions and purposes of the main character exist independently of sexuality. Furthermore, the film's setting serves a large rhetorical function. Being predominantly isolated, social constructs, barriers, expectations, and perceptions are therefore dismantled. As viewers, we only see these constructs reoccur when she is reintroduced to social products, like the encampments where she receives sympathetic treatment on the sole account that she is a woman, or the post office is being specially reopened by the pleading woman. Wild addresses other prevalent social issues like sexual assault, as seen when Cheryl encounters 2 groups of men during her hike, where she risks falling victim to the social construct of male sexual assault. However, Cheryl is smart and follows her instinct to get away, even if it necessitates lying. Society instills the requirement that women be polite under any and all circumstances. Cheryl knows that if she were to maintain her politeness and continue on with the men, she would subject herself to danger. Again, reinforcing the social deconstruction inherent in the setting, she deters from the social expectation of female politeness and is able to protect herself. Wild exhibits similarities of the plotted self-journey and discovery of Eat, Pray, Love, while simultaneously utilizing the social deconstruction of Into the Wild, culminating in a film that grants womanly power and self-redemption. Wild proves that women can be the stars of movies without dependence upon a male, engaging at a human level opposed to social binaries, or as Byron critically states, as the patriarchal perception that man's love is of man's life, and 'tis woman's whole existence. Wild exposes the not-so-beautiful moments, such as the backpack suppressing weight on Strayed's back, the bleeding welt on her feet, and the continuous filth, thus fulfilling the idea that actresses do not need to be sexy and perfect in order to portray the true meaning of femininity.
As said by Roger Ebert, the Academy Award winner for Best Actress always goes to a performance for whom gender and/or sexuality is a major part of the character's story. If you remove the sexuality aspect or the importance given to gender in the character's narrative, then you will fundamentally change the character. Exemplified in recent Best Actress Award winners, Natalie Portman in Black Swan, 2010, Hilary Swank in $1 Million Baby and Boys Don't Cry, 1999, Charlize Theron in Monster, 2003, Halle Berry in Monsters Ball, 2001, and Julia Roberts in Erin Brockovich, year 2000. There had been no true deterrence from patriarchal, misogynistic depictions of women and their sexuality until now. In remembering past Academy winners and nominees, we rarely see nominations in which the character portrays a truly traditionalized female depiction. Even in Theory of Everything, although Jane fails to ever flourish beyond her husband's constraints, she is still dynamic in her pursuits and interests, diverging from the trend of stereotypical womanhood. thus signifying that the Academy is slowly progressing beyond the most basic of female representations, and is beginning to incorporate them as larger, substantial, and more progressive characters. Speaking to the cultural effects of this phenomenon, when searching for a video of the nominations for Best Actress, the first link was Best Dressed. Seeing this, along with the still dominating presence of the male gaze within the discussed films, it becomes immediately apparent that men and women alike continue to evaluate femininity through the male gaze, valuing objectification over subjectification. This is an immediate byproduct of the prevalence of patriarchy within today's culture and mass media, debilitating males and females alike from escaping the standards and stereotypes advanced by an outdated, now irrelevant system of patriarchy.
The Academy is demographically 94% white and 23% female, a truly biased notion of representation. Due to the majority of male voters, the male gaze has inevitably played a large role in who will win Best Actress. However, we have recently seen a decrease in the nominations of over-sexualized and over-stereotyped women. In observing the past year's nomination, we have seen a progression of unique female characters who are not exclusively defined by their gender and objectification. Although this is a step in the right direction for our society, it is nominal within the systematic oppression of the Academy. The average salary increase for males winning Best Actor is $3.9 million, while females only see around $500,000 increase for Best Actress. Statistically speaking, the film industry values men's achievements almost 8 times more than the female equivalent. This extends onto the actresses, producers, writers, and cinematographers who exist within the highly competitive, political, economic, patriarchally driven Hollywood, whose primary intention is always profit, thus overshadowing the prioritizing of equal representation, maintaining a gross injustice.